At 1:16 on a Sunday morning, my husband's phone lit up on the nightstand beside me. He was asleep. I wasn't. The message preview contained only 7 words. Last night meant everything to me. For several seconds, I stared at the woman's name glowing beneath it. Sophie Lane. Then I looked at Julian sleeping peacefully beside me, the same man who had kissed my forehead 3 hours earlier and told me he was exhausted from meeting investors. I didn't wake him. I didn't shake his shoulder. I didn't ask where he had really spent Friday night. Instead, I lifted his phone, entered the password he had used for nearly 5 years, and replied. Come to our house tomorrow at 7. Elena deserves the truth. The typing bubbles appeared almost immediately. Then came her answer. Are you sure? What about the baby? My hand went completely still. I read the message twice. Then a third time. The affair was not the secret. It was only the part they believed I had finally discovered. I sent one final response. Tell her everything. Sophie replied with a heart. That tiny red symbol hurt more than the words. Because it showed me how safe she felt inside the future my husband had promised her. I placed Julian's phone exactly where I had found it. Then I walked downstairs, entered my office, and opened the fireproof cabinet containing 14 years of business records. By sunrise, I had photographed every joint account statement, changed the passwords to my company's systems, and scheduled an emergency meeting with my attorney. By lunchtime, I had set the dining table for 3. And by 7 that evening, the woman carrying my husband's child would be sitting inside our home, telling me how carefully he had planned to take my marriage, my company, and my name away from me. My name is Elena Brooks. I was 41 years old, and until that weekend, I thought I understood the difference between an imperfect marriage and a dishonest one. Julian and I had been married for 14 years. We lived in a renovated craftsman house outside Portland, Oregon, with white oak floors, tall windows, and a covered back porch where we drank coffee every Sunday morning. People often described our life as elegant. They saw the house. They saw our anniversary dinners. They saw the photographs from business events where Julian stood beside me with one hand resting confidently against my back. What they did not see was how quietly he had inserted himself into everything I built. I founded Heritage & Pine, a high-end home staging and interior consulting company, 6 years before I met him. I began with borrowed furniture, a second-hand delivery van, and 3 real estate agents willing to take a chance on me. By the time Julian and I married, Heritage & Pine had 22 employees, contracts across 3 states, and a reputation strong enough that developers waited months for our services. Julian worked in corporate finance. He was polished, intelligent, and able to make complicated numbers sound harmless. 2 years into our marriage, he began advising my company informally. Then formally. Eventually, he became Chief Financial Officer. At the time, it felt romantic. My husband believed in what I had built. He wanted to protect it. Or so I thought. Over the previous year, Julian had become distant in small ways. He traveled more. He showered immediately after coming home. He began placing his phone face down during dinner. When I asked whether something was wrong, he blamed work. When I asked whether we needed counseling, he kissed my forehead and told me I worried too much. Friday night, the night Sophie claimed had meant everything to her, Julian had told me he was meeting investors at a hotel near the river. He returned after midnight smelling like expensive soap and red wine. I had been awake, reading in bed. How did it go? I asked. Exhausting. He removed his jacket without looking at me. But worth it? I hope so. Then he leaned down, kissed my forehead, and walked into the bathroom. Less than 24 hours later, Sophie's message appeared. At 8 Sunday morning, Julian woke and reached for his phone. I was sitting beside the bedroom window drinking coffee. He read the screen. For 1 second, his face changed. Then the expression disappeared. Everything okay? I asked. He locked the phone. Just a supplier. At 1 in the morning. Different time zone. He said it so easily. That was the first moment I understood that lying to me no longer made him nervous. He had practiced too long. I have to go into the office, he said. On Sunday. There's an issue with the Harrington account. He entered the bathroom before I could answer. I watched the door close. There was no issue with the Harrington account. I knew because Harrington Developments was my client, not his. While Julian showered, I sent a message to my attorney, Camille Chen. Camille had handled my company's contracts for nearly 9 years. She answered 10 minutes later. Can you meet at 11? I replied. Yes. I may need a divorce lawyer too. Her call came immediately. Elena, are you safe? Yes. Is Julian there? For another 20 minutes. What happened? I looked toward the bathroom door. I found a message from a woman. Camille was silent. She's pregnant. Another silence. Then her voice became firm. Do not confront him until we understand what he has access to. He works inside my company. I know. He has access to the operating accounts, payroll and vendor systems. I know that too. My stomach tightened. Camille continued. Take screenshots of anything already available to you. Don't break into accounts that aren't yours. Don't transfer large sums. And do not tell him you're meeting me. He's leaving now. Good. Bring the corporate records and your shareholder agreement. At 11, I entered Camille's office carrying 2 document boxes. She wore jeans and a black sweater, but her desk looked prepared for war. Laptop open. Legal pad ready. Coffee untouched. I told her about the message. I told her about Sophie. I told her about the baby. Camille listened without reacting until I mentioned that I had invited Sophie to our house. You did what? I replied from Julian's phone. Elena. I need to hear what he told her. That may be useful, but you cannot threaten or manipulate her. I don't intend to. What does she think she's walking into? A conversation with a wife who knows everything. But you don't know everything. That's why she's coming. Camille stared at me for several seconds. Then she slowly nodded. Have the conversation in a common area. Do not secretly record unless we confirm the rules. Take written notes afterward. She opened the shareholder agreement. Her finger stopped halfway down the second page. You still own 72% of Heritage and Pine. Yes. Julian owns 8. Those shares vested through his employment package. And the remaining 20% belongs to your original investors. Yes. Can Julian borrow against company assets without board approval? No. Has he asked for approval recently? No. Camille leaned back. Then why did he request a corporate valuation 6 weeks ago? I stared at her. What valuation? She turned the laptop toward me. Her firm had been copied on a request sent by Julian to an outside appraisal company. The subject line read: Heritage and Pine, Confidential Acquisition Review. I never approved this. Did he mention selling the company? Never. Camille printed the email. Affairs create noise, she said. Sometimes people rely on that noise to hide something more expensive. At 6:30 that evening, I placed 3 glasses on the dining table. I did not cook. I ordered dinner from the Italian restaurant Julian took me to on our 10th anniversary. Not because I was sentimental. Because I wanted him to recognize the smell when he walked into the house. At exactly 7, the doorbell rang. Sophie Lane stood on the porch wearing a cream-colored coat and holding a small leather handbag against her stomach. She was younger than I expected. Perhaps 32. Blonde hair pulled into a low knot. Pale blue eyes. A nervous smile. She looked past me into the house. Is Julian here? Not yet. Her smile faded slightly. He said he would be. He should be home soon. I stepped aside. Come in. She entered carefully, looking at the framed photographs in the hallway. Our wedding. A trip to Vancouver. Julian and me standing inside Heritage and Pine's first warehouse. Her face changed when she saw that photograph. He told me you had already taken most of the pictures down. I haven't. She turned toward me. Did he tell you about us? Sit down, Sophie. She followed me into the dining room. Her eyes moved across the table. 3 places. 3 glasses. 1 empty chair between us. She placed her handbag on the floor. I don't want to hurt you. I sat across from her. Then tell me the truth. She folded her hands over her stomach. Julian said your marriage had been over for almost 2 years. It hasn't. He said you were only living together until the business sale was complete. There is no approved business sale. The color left her face. He told me you both agreed. We didn't. She looked toward the hallway. Maybe I should call him. You can. She picked up her phone. Before she could dial, I asked. How far along are you? Her hand stopped. 11 weeks. Does Julian know? Yes. When did you tell him? Last night. The message. Last night meant everything to me. It had not only referred to sex. It referred to the moment she told my husband she was carrying his child. She opened her handbag and removed a folded ultrasound image. I thought he told you this morning. He told me there was a problem with a supplier. Sophie's lips parted. He promised there would be no more lies after last night. I looked at the ultrasound but did not touch it. The small gray image seemed impossibly innocent compared with the adults surrounding it. How long have you been seeing him? 9 months. Where did you meet? At the Harrington launch. Harrington Developments. My client. My event. My husband had used my business to meet his mistress. He said he attended alone because you were ill, Sophie continued. I was working in the next room. She closed her eyes. I didn't know. Not at first. She looked at me. At first, I knew he was married. But he said you had separated privately. That was enough. Her eyes filled with tears. No. At least she answered honestly. He showed me divorce papers, she said. What papers? A petition. Your signature was on it. I never signed a divorce petition. Sophie reached into her handbag again. This time, she removed a small set of keys. He also gave me these. I looked at them. A silver key. A black electronic access tag. A wooden key ring engraved with the words. Home begins here. What do they open? The townhouse. What townhouse? She stared at me as if I were testing her. The one in Lake Oswego. I said nothing. He said it would be ours after the divorce. Who paid for it? There's a bridge loan. Secured by what? She hesitated. Heritage and Pine. The room became very quiet. He said you approved it, she whispered. My heartbeat slowed. Not sped up. Slowed. I had experienced that sensation only twice before, once when my father died and once when a fire destroyed our first warehouse. It was the moment panic stepped aside and something colder took over. Do you have the loan documents? Sophie unlocked her phone. Some of them. She opened an email and slid the screen toward me. The first page contained Heritage and Pine's logo. The second listed my company's warehouse as collateral. The final page carried my electronic signature. It looked real. Almost. But the middle initial was wrong. Julian always forgot that I had stopped using my birth middle name after my mother died. He copied the signature from an old agreement. I looked at Sophie. Did you witness me approve this? No. Did you ever speak to me before tonight? No. Then why did you believe him? Her voice broke. Because I wanted to. Headlights swept across the front windows. Julian's car entered the driveway. Sophie looked toward the door. He doesn't know I'm here. He invited you. Her face tightened. No. You did. The front door opened. Julian called from the hallway. Elena. He entered the dining room carrying his laptop bag. Then he saw Sophie. The bag slipped from his hand. For several seconds, no one moved. Sophie stood. You told me she knew. Julian stared at me. What did you do? I gestured toward the empty chair. Sit down. Elena. Sit. He had never heard that tone from me. Neither had I. He slowly took the chair between us. The food remained untouched. Steam no longer rose from the containers. I looked at Sophie. Tell him what you told me. Julian turned toward her. Sophie, don't. She looked confused. You said there would be no more lies. This isn't the right way. What was the right way? I asked. After the loan closed. After the company sale. Or after the baby arrived. His face changed when I mentioned the loan. That told me everything I needed to know. Sophie placed the keys on the table. She says she never approved the townhouse. Julian leaned toward her. She's upset. I am not upset, I said. He looked at me. I placed my hands flat against the table. I am paying attention. Elena, the loan is temporary. You borrowed against my company without authorization. I was restructuring assets. You forged my signature. I had authority as CFO. You do not have authority to pledge the warehouse. He looked toward Sophie. This is a business disagreement. No, she whispered. You told me the company was already sold. Julian's jaw tightened. It will be. To whom? I asked. He said nothing. I leaned back. Please continue, Sophie. She looked at him. Tell her about Lisbon. Julian went completely still. I turned toward her. What about Lisbon? Sophie swallowed. I found a travel confirmation on his laptop. A one-way flight leaving 3 days after the townhouse closing. Julian stood. This conversation is over. No, I said. It's finally beginning. Sophie's voice shook. You told me we were going to California. Julian reached for her phone. She pulled it away. Who were you going to Lisbon with? He didn't answer. Sophie opened the travel confirmation. There's only one passenger. She looked at me, then at him. He wasn't leaving with either of us. Julian stared at the phone. The affair had not been his escape plan. Sophie had not been his new life. She had been another person standing between him and money. And suddenly, the 3 places at my dining table made perfect sense. One wife. One pregnant mistress. And one man who had planned to abandon us both. Julian did not deny the Lisbon ticket. He attacked the timing. It was refundable. Sophie laughed once. There was no humor in it. You told me you were afraid of flying. I booked it for a conference. What conference? I asked. He looked at me. Private banking. Name it. He didn't. I picked up the loan documents. How much is the townhouse? 840,000. Sophie answered before he could. I looked at her. And the bridge loan? 600,000. Julian rubbed both hands over his face. Elena, if you would let me explain. You've been explaining for 14 years. He dropped his hands. This company is not as stable as you think. It is stable. Because I've been protecting you from the truth. I almost admired the strategy. Even now, he wanted me to believe he was the responsible one. What truth? Our cash flow is collapsing. It isn't. You don't review the daily accounts. My controller does. He reports to me. That sentence settled between us. For the first time, I wondered how many employees had been receiving information through Julian instead of me. How much money is missing? I asked. Nothing is missing. Sophie pushed her phone across the table. Then why did you tell me the bridge loan would replace what you moved from the company? Julian turned toward her. You're emotional. She placed one hand over her stomach. I was calm enough when you needed me to sign the townhouse application. I looked at her. You signed it? As the future occupant. Not the borrower. Did Julian tell the lender you worked for Heritage and Pine? Her eyes widened. I don't. You're listed as a marketing consultant. I have never worked there. Julian stood again. I'm leaving. I did not stop him. As he reached the hallway, I spoke. Your company access was suspended this morning. He turned. You cannot do that. I own 72%. I'm CFO. Not anymore. His face hardened. You met with Camille. Yes. What did you tell her? The truth. You don't know the truth. Then this is your opportunity. He looked at Sophie. Then at me. For one brief moment, I saw the calculation behind his eyes. He was deciding which woman could still be controlled. He chose Sophie. Come with me. She stared at him. Where? Anywhere but here. You were going to Lisbon without me. That ticket has nothing to do with us. The baby has nothing to do with us either. His expression softened. A performance so familiar I could have recited it with him. Sophie, I love you. She began crying. Not because she believed him. Because she finally understood how often she had. Julian stepped closer. She moved behind her chair. Don't touch me. His face changed again. The softness disappeared. He looked at me. You planned this. I invited the truth to dinner. You humiliated me in my own home. This house belonged to my mother. We are married. For the moment. I opened the front door. Leave. He did not move. You will regret making this public, he said. I held the door wider. Then you should have behaved better in private. He picked up his laptop bag and walked outside. I locked the door behind him. When I returned to the dining room, Sophie was sitting with both hands around one of the untouched water glasses. I didn't know about the company, she said. You knew about me. She nodded. Yes. I sat across from her. There was no point pretending she was innocent. But guilty people could still tell useful truths. Tell me how the townhouse started. She took a slow breath. Julian said he wanted somewhere peaceful for us and the baby. He introduced me to a mortgage broker named Darren Cole. The name was familiar. Darren had worked with Heritage and Pine on several development projects. He told me the bridge financing would be replaced when you sold your shares, she continued. I'm not selling. He said the acquisition was already approved. Did he tell you the buyer? No. He called it a private investment group. I opened my notebook. What documents did you sign? An occupancy statement. A financial disclosure. A consulting agreement. For Heritage and Pine. Yes. Did you receive money? Julian paid me $5,000 a month. For what? He said it was temporary support until we could be open about the relationship. Which account paid you? I don't know. I wrote down the amount. 9 months. $45,000. Possibly more. What do you do for work? I manage public relations for a hotel group. Did he ask you to create marketing reports? Sometimes. What kind? Competitor research. Client lists. Development opportunities. For Heritage and Pine. He said he was building a future division. My stomach tightened. Did you send him confidential information from your hotel group? Her face went pale. Only public data. That wasn't my question. She looked down. Some occupancy reports. Julian had not only been using my company. He had been using Sophie's job. 2 women. 2 sets of credentials. 2 futures he could sell. Forward every message and document to Camille, I said. Sophie looked up. Will I be arrested? I'm not your attorney. I could lose my job. Yes. Her eyes filled again. I felt sympathy. But sympathy did not erase consequences. You should speak to your own lawyer before deleting or sending anything, I said. She nodded. At the front door, she stopped. I thought you would hate me. I don't know you well enough to hate you. She absorbed the sentence. Do you hate him? I looked toward the dining table. Julian's chair remained pulled away. No, I said. But I'm beginning to understand him. The following morning, Camille arrived at Heritage and Pine with a forensic accountant named Owen Price and an information security specialist named Maya Patel. We met before the employees arrived. Maya disconnected Julian's company laptop from the network and preserved his email account. Owen began reviewing bank transfers. Camille instructed me not to contact lenders or accuse anyone publicly until we understood the scale of the problem. By noon, the first irregular payment appeared. $25,000 transferred to a consulting company called North Coast Advisory. The company's registered agent was Darren Cole, the mortgage broker connected to Sophie's townhouse. There were 6 more payments. Then 9. Then 13. Over 18 months, Heritage and Pine had paid North Coast Advisory $312,000. I had never approved the company as a vendor. What services did they provide? I asked. Owen pointed toward the invoice descriptions. Strategic planning. Acquisition support. Risk consulting. Words vague enough to sound valuable. Did Julian have authority to approve vendor invoices? Camille asked. Up to $25,000. Every payment was $25,000 or less. He had designed the theft around his approval limit. Maya entered the conference room carrying printed emails. We have another problem. She placed them on the table. The emails appeared to come from me. They instructed accounting staff to pay North Coast quickly and avoid discussing the project with the board because of confidential acquisition rules. I never sent these. Maya nodded. They were sent from your account. How? Your credentials were used from Julian's office computer. Camille's expression hardened. Can you prove that? The access logs are clear. I remembered the evenings Julian brought me tea while I worked. The times he offered to update my laptop. The weekend he said our company systems needed better password management. Trust had not merely allowed him into my marriage. It had given him administrator privileges. Owen opened another spreadsheet. If North Coast received $312,000, only $106,000 remains in its account. Where did the rest go? Townhouse deposit. Payments to Sophie. Personal credit cards. And a foreign account held by a company registered in Portugal. Lisbon. How much reached Portugal? $148,000. Camille leaned forward. Can the bank stop it? Some of it may already be outside the country. I stared at the numbers. Sophie's message had arrived less than 48 hours earlier. Yet Julian's exit had been building for more than a year. The affair was not impulsive. The fraud was not desperate. Everything had been scheduled. That afternoon, Heritage and Pines board met in our main conference room. 2 original investors attended in person. The third joined by video. Julian arrived with an attorney. He had been notified of the meeting but told not to access company systems. He entered wearing a navy suit and the expression he used when convincing lenders to extend deadlines. I'd like the record to reflect that this meeting was called without appropriate notice, his attorney said. Camille handed him a copy of the company bylaws. Emergency notice is permitted when there is a risk to corporate assets. Julian sat across from me. He did not look like a husband. He looked like an executive preparing to remove an obstacle. Camille began with the unauthorized valuation request. Then North Coast Advisory. Then the townhouse loan. Then the email sent from my account. Julian listened without interrupting. When Camille finished, he folded his hands. Elena has misunderstood a confidential restructuring strategy. One of my investors, Thomas Reed, frowned. Were you authorized to pledge the warehouse? No pledge was finalized. That wasn't the question, Thomas said. Julian glanced toward his attorney. I believed approval would be obtained before closing. I spoke for the first time. Why was my signature already on the document? He looked at me. Because you signed a general financing authorization. No, I didn't. You signed multiple documents last year. Show me the original. His attorney whispered something. Julian continued. Elena has been under significant emotional stress. There it was. His new strategy. Not innocent husband. Concerned executive. He looked toward the board. She discovered a private relationship and is now interpreting normal business activity as criminal. Thomas looked at me. Is there a private relationship? My husband has been having an affair with a woman he falsely listed as a Heritage and Pine consultant. I kept my voice calm. She is also pregnant. Silence settled over the room. Julian's attorney closed his eyes briefly. I continued. The affair is personal. The forged signature and missing corporate funds are not. Camille placed the access logs on the screen. Maya explained how my account had been used from Julian's device. Owen presented the transfers to North Coast and Portugal. Julian's confidence weakened with every page. Then Maya opened a recovered draft email. The subject line read: Immediate board review, suspected misappropriation by Elena Brooks. The email had been scheduled to send 3 days after the townhouse closing. It accused me of authorizing improper vendor payments. Attached were the fake emails sent from my account. Julian had not only planned to take company money. He planned to report me for taking it. One investor removed his glasses. You intended to accuse Elena of your own transactions. Julian's face tightened. That draft was part of an internal risk exercise. Camille almost smiled. It included a completed whistleblower complaint. Julian looked at me. For the first time, he appeared genuinely afraid. The board voted unanimously to remove him as CFO, suspend his shareholder voting rights pending litigation, and authorize an independent forensic audit. His attorney gathered the documents. Julian remained seated. "You're destroying the company," he said to me. "No." I closed my notebook. "I'm removing the person who was selling it in pieces." He stood. "This is not finished." "I know." He expected fear. Instead, I looked directly into his eyes. "Neither is the audit." That night, I stayed at Camille's guest house. She did not want me alone until we changed the security codes at home. At 11:42, my phone rang from an unknown number. I answered but said nothing. Julian's voice came through. "You embarrassed me. You tried to frame me. You could have handled this privately. I tried that for 14 years. You have no idea what you've started." I found the Lisbon account. Silence. Then. "That money is legally mine. It came from my company. I built that company with you. You joined it after it was successful." His breathing grew heavier. "I can still make this disappear." "How?" "You withdraw the allegations. Reinstate me. We sell a minority stake and repay the accounts." "And Sophie? What about her?" "She's carrying your child. That is none of your concern." His coldness surprised even me. "You told her you loved her." "I told her what she needed to hear." The sentence was so clear that for a second, I forgot to breathe. I looked at Camille. She was writing every word on a legal pad. "Did you tell me what I needed to hear too?" I asked. Julian laughed quietly. "Elena, everyone does that in marriage." "No." I ended the call. The following morning, Sophie sent Camille a message from her attorney. She had found something. A file Julian stored in a shared cloud folder. Inside were drafts of the townhouse documents, copies of my electronic signature, and an unsigned agreement offering Sophie $75,000 if she claimed that I personally recruited her as a consultant. The agreement also required her to state that I knew about the relationship. Julian had planned to purchase her silence. And if she refused, the false consulting payments would make her look like part of the fraud. Sophie had believed she was his future wife. In reality, she had been his backup witness. At 4 that afternoon, a security alert appeared on my phone. Someone was attempting to enter my house through the garage. The new access code failed 3 times. Then the exterior camera activated. Julian stood outside in the rain. He was not carrying luggage. He was carrying a crowbar. I watched him test the side door. Then he looked directly into the camera. "Elena," he said, knowing I could hear him. "Open the house." I pressed the speaker button. "You were instructed not to enter. My documents are inside. Your attorney can request them. You have something that belongs to me." "What?" "The external drive." I had not found an external drive. But now I knew one existed. Julian stepped toward the camera. "Do not open it." "Why?" His face changed. Because he realized he had already said too much. Behind him, headlights entered the driveway. Camille had arranged for private security to check the property. Julian dropped the crowbar. He walked toward his car before the guard could reach him. But the camera had recorded everything. That evening, Maya searched the home office with my permission. Inside a locked drawer, she found a small black drive taped beneath a false wooden panel. We did not open it at the house. We placed it in an evidence bag. The next morning, investigators copied its contents. It contained financial records, passwords, draft complaints against me, and a document titled Exit Timeline. The last line was dated 3 days after the townhouse closing. Transfer final funds. Send board complaint. Depart for Lisbon. Underneath it, Julian had written 5 words. Elena will take the blame. The townhouse closing never happened. The lender suspended the transaction after receiving notice that Heritage and Pine had not authorized the collateral documents. The money remaining in the Portugal account was frozen pending investigation. North Coast Advisory's bank records were preserved. Julian's attempt to access the house became part of Camille's request for a temporary protective order. Sophie resigned from her hotel job before she could be dismissed. She hired her own attorney and began cooperating with the forensic audit. I did not forgive her. But I listened. There is a difference. Sophie provided more than 600 messages between her and Julian. In those messages, he described me as controlling, cold, obsessed with work. He told her I had refused to give him children. He said I cared more about Heritage and Pine than our marriage. Some messages contained pieces of truth. I did work long hours. I did struggle to speak about emotions. There were evenings when Julian asked for my attention and I answered one more email. But ordinary failures do not justify extraordinary betrayal. A marriage can be imperfect without becoming permission to steal. 3 weeks after the audit began, I met Sophie in Camille's conference room. Her attorney sat beside her. Sophie looked exhausted. The confidence she carried into my dining room had disappeared. I found this yesterday, she said. She placed her phone on the table. It was an audio message Julian had sent her 6 months earlier. His voice filled the room. Elena trusts documents more than people. That's why this works. Once the board sees the approvals, she'll spend months proving she didn't sign them. By then, we'll be gone. Sophie stopped the recording. I thought he meant you had approved the sale. I looked at her. You thought many things. She accepted the criticism. Yes. Why are you helping now? Her hand moved instinctively toward her stomach. Because if I don't tell the truth, my child grows up inside his version of it. For the first time, I saw something in Sophie that was not fear or guilt. Responsibility. Late responsibility. But real. Did Julian ever intend to raise the baby with you? I asked. Her eyes filled. I don't know. That isn't what I asked. She looked down. No. She opened another message. Julian had written. Once the transfer clears, I need space. Don't make permanent decisions based on a pregnancy. He sent it the morning after she told him about the baby. The same morning he told me there was a supplier problem. Sophie wiped her face. I thought last night changed everything. It did. She looked at me. How? It showed both of us who he was. The civil hearing took place 7 weeks later. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. No dramatic gallery. No cameras. Just dark wood, fluorescent lighting, attorneys carrying boxes, and people pretending paperwork could not change lives. Julian sat beside his attorney. He had shaved. His suit was perfectly pressed. For a moment, he looked like the man I married. Then he opened a folder, and the illusion disappeared. The hearing addressed company control, preservation of assets, the forged loan documents, and the financial restrictions required during our divorce. Camille began with the shareholder agreement. Heritage and Pine existed before my marriage. I owned the controlling interest. Julian's minority shares came from employment and remained subject to fraud and misconduct provisions. Then Owen presented the financial audit. $312,000 to North Coast Advisory. 148,000 routed toward Portugal. 45,000 paid to Sophie through false consulting arrangements. A townhouse deposit. Personal cards. Travel. Each number appeared on a screen. Each transaction had a date. Julian's attorney argued that I benefited from his financial leadership for years and had informally authorized him to make independent decisions. Camille displayed the loan document with my false signature. Then the original agreement from which he had copied it. Different middle initial. Identical pen marks. Identical pressure pattern. A signature copied, not written. The judge looked at Julian. Did Mrs. Brooks sign the bridge loan? He looked toward his attorney. The judge waited. No, he said. Did she authorize you to use her signature? I believed previous financing authority applied. That is not what I asked. His shoulders lowered slightly. No. Camille then presented the scheduled whistleblower complaint accusing me of the same payments Julian arranged. His attorney objected. The judge allowed it. Why was this complaint prepared before the loan closing? Camille asked. Julian took a slow breath. I became concerned about Elena's management. You became concerned enough to accuse her of payments sent from your computer. I managed her email during periods of travel. Did she ask you to send those payment instructions? I don't recall. Maya's access logs appeared. Dates. Times. Device location. On one occasion, my account had sent a payment approval while I was speaking on stage at a design conference in Denver. Photographs and event footage confirmed it. Julian was in Portland. You expect the court to believe Elena approved a payment from your office while addressing 300 people in another state? Camille asked. His attorney stood. Argumentative. The judge looked at Julian. You may answer. Julian's expression hardened. We had shared authority. No, I said quietly at the table. Camille touched my arm, reminding me not to interrupt. She called Sophie. Sophie walked to the witness chair wearing a loose navy dress. She did not look at me. Camille asked when the affair began. How Julian described our marriage. What he told her about Heritage and Pine. Why she accepted consulting payments. Sophie answered every question. Some answers made her look manipulated. Others made her look selfish. That was the truth. People are rarely one thing. Did you believe Mrs. Brooks knew about your relationship? Camille asked. At first, no. Did that stop you? No. When did you begin believing she knew? When Julian showed me a divorce petition and said Elena had approved the company's sale. Do you now know the petition was false? Yes. Do you now know the company's sale had not been approved? Yes. Did Julian ask you to sign a statement saying Elena recruited you? Yes. Was that true? No. Julian stared at her. Sophie's voice trembled, but she continued. He said if I didn't sign, the consulting payments would make it look like I helped steal from the company. Were you afraid? Yes. Why did you cooperate with the audit? Sophie finally looked toward Julian. Because he lied to both of us. Camille approached the evidence table. Only both. She displayed the exit timeline. Transfer funds. Send complaint. Depart for Lisbon. Elena takes the blame. Sophie's face tightened. No, she whispered. He lied to everyone. Julian's attorney attempted to explain the document as a personal planning exercise. The judge did not appear persuaded. By the end of the hearing, Julian was prohibited from accessing Heritage and Pine systems, accounts, property, or employees. His voting rights remained suspended. The court preserved the disputed assets and recognized the evidence supporting my claim that he had breached his fiduciary responsibilities. The larger fraud investigation would continue separately. But the decision that mattered most was immediate. He could no longer touch what I had built. Outside the courtroom, Julian followed me toward the elevators. Elena. Camille remained beside me. I stopped. Julian glanced at her. Can I speak to my wife alone? Not today, Camille said. I looked at him. You can speak here. His face tightened. You turned Sophie against me. No. You invited her into our home. I invited her to tell the truth. You knew she was vulnerable. So did you. He looked away. For several seconds, the hallway was quiet except for the sound of a printer inside the clerk's office. I made mistakes, he said. You made a schedule. He looked back at me. I was under pressure. You made me the solution to your pressure. I helped build Heritage and Pine. You helped manage it. That company became successful because of decisions I made. It was successful before you arrived. His expression changed. That truth had always offended him. He wanted to believe my life began when he entered it. I loved you, he said. I studied him carefully. Maybe some part of him had. But love without respect was simply attachment with better language. You loved being trusted, I said. His eyes filled. You think I'm a monster? No. That surprised him. I continued. I think you are a man who made one dishonest decision, then built another decision around it, and another, until telling the truth became more expensive than destroying everyone around you. He lowered his voice. What happens to me now? For 14 years, Julian had brought me problems and expected me to build solutions. Business problems. Family problems. Money problems. Even his affair had somehow become a question he expected me to answer. I don't know, I said. Ask your attorney. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside with Camille. Just before they closed, Julian spoke again. What about us? I looked at the man I had slept beside 2 nights before Sophie's message. The man whose coffee I knew how to prepare. The man whose lies had been hidden inside ordinary mornings. There is no us. The doors closed. Our divorce finalized 6 months later. The house remained mine under the settlement. Heritage and Pine remained under my control. Julian surrendered his company shares as part of the financial resolution and repayment obligations. The investigation into North Coast and the forged loan documents continued. Eventually, Julian entered a legal agreement resolving several charges and accepted financial penalties, restitution, and professional restrictions. I did not attend every proceeding. At some point, consequences no longer required my presence. Sophie gave birth to a daughter in early spring. She sent me one photograph. A tiny sleeping baby wrapped in a white blanket. Underneath, Sophie wrote, "She deserves a life without secrets. Thank you for forcing me to tell the truth." I did not reply immediately. For nearly an hour, I looked at the child's face. She had not asked to enter our mess. She had not written the messages. She had not signed the documents. She had not made promises to anyone. Finally, I replied. Protect her from the choices adults make for themselves. Sophie and I did not become friends. Some stories do not need that kind of ending. We became 2 women who had once believed the same man and eventually chose not to protect his lies. That was enough. At Heritage and Pine, I made changes. No single executive could approve large vendor payments. Every company login required independent verification. Employees could report concerns directly to the board. But the biggest change was not financial. I stopped apologizing for being the person who had built the company. Julian had spent years making ambition sound like a flaw. He told Sophie I was cold because I worked. He told the board I was emotional because I discovered the affair. Whatever I did, he reshaped it into evidence against me. After he left, I realized how exhausting it had been to defend myself inside my own marriage. That summer, I renovated the dining room. For months, I avoided it. I could still see Sophie sitting across from me. The ultrasound on the table. Julian's empty explanations. 3 glasses no one touched. Eventually, I sold the dining set. Not because it was damaged. Because I no longer wanted furniture chosen for a life built around appearances. I replaced it with a round wooden table made by a local craftswoman. No head seat. No place for one person to control the room. The first dinner I hosted there was for my employees. We ate pasta, drank inexpensive wine, and laughed until almost midnight. At one point, Camille looked around the table. "You seem peaceful," she said. "I am." "Happy?" I considered the question. Happiness sounded too simple for what I felt. I'm not waiting for another person to tell me what my life means. She smiled. That sounds better than happy. A year after the message appeared on Julian's phone, I woke at 1:16 in the morning. For a moment, I remembered the glow on the nightstand. Last night meant everything to me. The sentence had once felt like proof that another woman had taken something from me. Now I understood it differently. That night did mean everything. It ended the life Julian had been quietly designing for me. The wife blamed for his theft. The business owner removed from her company. The woman left behind while he disappeared with the money. But the message reached me before his plan was complete. And instead of confronting him alone, I invited the one person who knew a different version of his story. I let her speak. I listened. And the more truth entered the room, the less power Julian had. Sometimes revenge is not screaming louder than the person who betrayed you. Sometimes it is giving every lie enough space to contradict the next one. Sometimes it is placing the right people at the same table and allowing the truth to choose where it belongs. Julian believed Sophie and I were competing for him. We were not. By the end, neither of us wanted him. He believed he had built 2 separate stories strong enough to control 2 women. He never understood that the moment those women spoke to each other, he lost control of both. If someone has ever relied on your silence to keep their lies alive, remember this. You do not have to protect the version of events that protects the person who hurt you. Tell the truth. Ask questions. Compare stories. And never confuse remaining calm with remaining powerless. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what you would have done after seeing that message. Would you have confronted Julian immediately? Or would you have invited Sophie to dinner and let her tell you everything? And for more stories about betrayal, intelligent revenge, and women who finally choose themselves, subscribe to Revenges and stay with us.